we're going to move to Q&A now. And if you have questions for the panelists, you can enter them. There's a Q&A window at the bottom of your screen, so you can enter your Q&A questions there. But you know, as we wait for questions to come in, a question for the panelists is, any predictions for how this is going to play out? Any sense for what kind of recovery we're looking at? How are you all thinking, and how are your portfolio companies thinking about this coming year?
Yeah, I'll give you my 2 cents. First of all, most of our companies, we went through a deep dive with all 41 of our companies, and in late March, and we had an investment committee meeting that spanned 2 days to go over all 41. And every company pretty much followed this pattern, rightly or wrongly, because what the hell did we know back in March 30th? We don't know anything more today. We said, okay, so the second quarter is going to be a disaster. The third quarter is going to be better than the second quarter, but the third and fourth quarter won't be anywhere near what we budgeted for the third and fourth quarter. And then 2021 will resume some growth, but over a much lower denominator, because everything will be compressed in 2020. But we have no idea. What has happened for many of our companies is that those 2 healthcare businesses, the eye guys and the dermatology guys, they opened up sooner than we thought, and they're at full boat. Well, the throughputs aren't as great, but they're at full boat. Some of our payment processing businesses that sold to beauty salons, we have one that sells to beauty salons, has come back much higher than our downside scenario. But I don't trust any of this because I have no idea. And the big overlay over all this is the political overlay. You know, is there going to be an impact? There will be an impact of something in the November election. And how will that play out? And does that cause everybody to be cautious for a while? So, I mean, I'll defer to my 2 panel members, but I have no idea.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, I don't know how anybody can make a prediction. You can just make your best guess and take the steps that you need to with your company. But, you know, recovery is going to be a factor of the level of government and individuals' willingness to take a risk vis-a-vis COVID, and our collective ability to really adapt to a new reality and the pace at which individuals have access to treatment and vaccines going forward. I have no answers. I've got a lot of questions that I think about in terms of what's going to be the shape of capital availability, what's the shape of the venture capital market itself. Is that going to change? Is there going to be a need to create new financial tools to support companies who may have a different growth trajectory than the one that we're used to seeing? After the Great Recession, we saw a market increase in government regulation on the financial services industry. I would bet that you're going to see more regulation coming out of COVID, and which industries and activities is that going to affect? We're seeing serious supply chain disruptions. What's going to be the impact of calls to correct that? I think it's going to have international ramifications, which means the strategies of our companies that are going global have to be rethought. We're already seeing companies that are reshoring assets and capabilities, and is that going to accelerate? The pandemic has unleashed unprecedented levels already of federal funding. What's the impact that's going to have on our national ability to sustain that debt, and how's it going to impact our economies and, in our future? At local and state level, budgets are decimated. So what does that mean in terms of the availability of services, especially those who are being hit the hardest? And so what does that mean for where your company sits today? So a lot of questions, not a lot of answers, unfortunately.
I think one of the practical impacts of what both Howard and Roseanne just talked about is that you really, the leadership of the company really needs to be paying attention every day to what's happening in the marketplace with their customers, and then adopt as that experience plays through with all those issues. And some of those things will be better than we thought, as Howard talked about one example, and some will be worse. But the only way that you're going to survive this, so the companies are going to survive this, if you are paying complete attention, talking to your customers, talking to your salespeople, everybody who knows something about the business, talking about supply chain, all those people, and then adjusting on literally a monthly basis as to what your experience is, because you're not going to be able to predict, as everybody says. So figuring out how to be facile and adapt quickly is going to be key to success.
Great. A question that came in, how will this impact your environmental, social, and governance strategy? It certainly seems like it's highlighted the importance of ESG data in company analysis.
Yeah, so I mean, my view is that I think investors are going to be asking for, we talk about what's the impact beyond the innovation. We have been talking about that for years, and I think we're seeing more of a move to focus on companies that are attempting to solve real problems. And I think there will be probably a call for companies that are solving real problems for a while at least, and less of support for companies that are sort of fun. So I think that is going to see more attention, not less attention.
As Roseanne knows, I work closely with a local family office that's very interested in all these issues, and particularly in diversity. And I think that has become, and Ben Franklin is talking about this at great length, and I think that's going to become an additional part of what everybody does, is what's your diversity program? Is it effective? Is it practical? Is it real? Are you just paying lip service to it? And I think that more and more people are going to say, I'm not putting money in that company unless they have a real and effective diversity program.
Yeah, I'll just second all those thoughts. I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion are must-discuss topics. Most of our companies on their own have had discussions with their people. We have one CEO who's now on his 4th Zoom call with his employee base, drawing people out of the employee base. It's 2,800 people. He's drawing people out of color, and getting them all to talk about their experiences with the entire employee base. So our firm is doing a lot more real time on these issues. So, we're raising our next fund, and every LP wants to know what we're doing with ESG, both as what our feelings are, and then how we're implementing ESG into our diligence, into the ongoing governance of the company.
So another question, and we may only have time for this one last one. And this is a question from an angel investor. So what should an angel investor be looking for in this economy, and any guidance on any guidance on investment strategies or where there might be opportunities for investment in today's environment?
Well, first I'll start with management. I mean, it's so basic, and you'll all sort of laugh probably, but as some of the people here, particularly Roseanne and Howard, know, I am not a technology person, and yet I've made a living in the past 25 years investing in technology companies. And it's because I have enough experience in evaluating management and their ability to be good entrepreneurs, understand strategy, understand operations, but it is so critical now. And I have to admit that I'm rethinking the issue. I've made some investments in the last couple of years in a couple of companies that have brand new entrepreneurs, and not to take them out of the mix, but I got to tell you, I think investing in a first-time entrepreneur right now just raises the risk even further than it is otherwise.
So, I mean, we've seen in most of the companies, a lot of the companies that we invest in are so early. They're pre-revenue. We're talking about proof of concept investments and really startup or early stage funding. In many cases, the company that we invested in and the company that ends up being fine with us bears no resemblance. I mean, what they started out to be and what they ended up doing changes. And so it comes back to, again, management and the ability to pivot and drop what's not working and pick up what something might be more productive for you. So somebody talked about the ability to be facile and flexible and really continue to scan your periphery and your environment all the time. Really, really critical. So it comes down to management and the management team.
Great, thank you. Well, that's about it. It's been a pretty fast hour. We certainly appreciate everybody. Let me turn everybody's participation and definitely our panelists. Let me kick it back to Dean to wrap up.
Alan, thanks so much. And Roseanne, Bob, and Howard, just such insightful comments. I love the conversation, the back and forth. I could listen to it for hours, candidly. And particularly your last comments around ESG, but also diversity, equity, inclusion, and a real focus on elevating equity in our community and in the technology community. We had an incredible group of participants here today, several Enterprise Award winners and finalists, a fellow legend in the case of John Martinson, and a PACT founding board member, Fairmount partner Charles Robbins. So you had an esteemed group of individuals that you all, as legends yourself, were speaking to. Again, I remind everyone, we will be producing the Enterprise Awards on September 9th. I want to thank Bob, Roseanne, and Howard, as well as Alan once again. Please be on the lookout for the survey to help us improve these programs. Again, thank you to Fairmount Partners for their support